As a hungry crocodile lunged and grabbed a baby elephant by the trunk, it seemed like a tragic end was near. But just seconds later, something incredible happened that no one could have expected. Francois Borman crouched low in the tall grass of the manor pools in Zimbabwe's Zambezi Valley, his camera poised and ready. In the distance, he spotted a small herd of elephants making their way towards the water. His heart quickened as he recognized a familiar group: a mother, her young calf, and a few other members of their family. The baby elephant, no more than a few months old, was full of energy. The moment it spotted the water, it broke into a run, its little legs kicking up dust as it raced ahead of the others. Francois smiled behind his camera as he watched the calf splash into the shallow end of the pool, rolling and flopping in the muddy water with sheer delight. It was a picture of innocence, the kind of moment that every wildlife photographer dreams of capturing. Francois clicked away, his lens following the calf's every move. The young elephant, oblivious to any danger, splashed happily in the shallow water, occasionally lifting its trunk and dipping it into the pool, as if trying to mimic the adults but not quite succeeding. Instead of using it like its relatives were doing, the young elephant awkwardly dropped to its knees and began drinking with its mouth, clearly still unsure of how to properly use its trunk for drinking. The rest of the herd moved more slowly, their large weathered bodies swaying as they approached the water's edge. The mother, ever watchful, stayed close to her baby, but even she seemed at ease in this familiar environment. As Francois continued to photograph the scene, something caught his eye: a subtle ripple in the water, just a few feet away from the calf. It was so faint that he almost missed it, but years of experience in the bush had taught him to notice even the smallest details. His breath caught in his throat as he adjusted his focus, trying to see more clearly. The ripple grew, its movement deliberate and slow. Francois felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He knew what it meant. A crocodile was lurking just beneath the surface. The predator had likely been watching the herd for some time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now, with the baby elephant distracted and separated from the adults, that moment had come. Francois's mind raced. He wanted to shout to warn the elephants of the impending danger, but he knew that any sudden movement or noise could startle them and send them fleeing into a panic. He also knew that nature had to take its course. All he could do was watch, his finger hovering over the shutter, ready to capture whatever happened next. The calf, still kneeling by the water's edge, continued to play, occasionally attempting to use its trunk, but mostly drinking with its mouth. At one point it stood up and extended its trunk into the water to try it out again, blissfully unaware of the peril lurking just beneath the surface. Suddenly the water erupted. Francois's heart skipped a beat as he saw the crocodile's dark, scaly form surge out of the water, its powerful jaws snapping shut around the calf's trunk, grabbing it firmly. The baby elephant let out a piercing scream, a sound so raw and filled with terror that it seemed to freeze time itself. Francois's camera clicked furiously, capturing the chaos as the calf struggled to free itself from the crocodile's grip. But seconds later, in that moment of sheer panic, a miracle happened. The mother elephant, who had been drinking nearby, reacted with lightning speed. Trumpeting loudly, she charged at the crocodile, her massive form crashing into the water with a force that sent waves splashing in every direction. The rest of the herd, sensing the danger, followed suit, their combined weight and fury creating a thunderous stampede towards the water. For a moment it seemed as though the crocodile might drag the calf under, but the herd's sudden and aggressive response took the predator by surprise. The crocodile hesitated, its grip loosening just enough for the baby elephant to wrench its trunk free. The calf scrambled to its feet and bolted towards the safety of the herd, still screaming but now free from the jaws of death. The baby elephant, though shaken, was alive, and the crocodile, outmatched by the sheer size and determination of the herd, slithered back into the depths of the pool. The herd formed a protective circle around the young calf, their bodies a solid barrier against any further threats. Francois had witnessed a miracle, but the day was far from over. Nature had more surprises in store. The elephants, sensing that the immediate danger had passed, began to move away from the water. Francois, still hiding in the tall grass, continued to follow their movements through his camera lens. His nerves were still on edge, the adrenaline from the earlier encounter making his hands tremble slightly. He was about to lower his camera and take a deep breath when something caught his attention, a faint but distinct sound coming from behind him. He turned slowly, his senses on high alert. The sound was growing louder, a rustling in the bushes that seemed too purposeful to be the wind. Francois's heart raced as he realized that he was not alone. In the rush of documenting the elephant's ordeal, he had forgotten about his own safety. He was deep in the bush, far from any human presence, and now something or someone was approaching. Francois remained perfectly still, his breath shallow as he waited. The rustling grew closer, until finally, a figure emerged from the dense foliage. To his astonishment, it was not another predator or a curious animal, but a local tribesman. His weathered face was etched with years of experience in the wild. The man held a spear in one hand, and his eyes were fixed on Francois with an intensity that made the photographer uneasy. Before he could react, the tribesman spoke in a low, commanding voice, his words in a dialect that Francois barely understood, but the meaning was clear. The man had seen the crocodile attack and was here to offer a warning. Francois tried to explain in broken Shona, a language he had picked up over the years, that he was just a photographer, but the tribesman's expression remained grave. The man gestured towards the pool, then at the surrounding area, indicating that the crocodile was not the only danger lurking in these waters. Francois's mind raced, trying to piece together what the tribesman was trying to convey. He knew this region well, but the tribesman's demeanor suggested that there was something more, something Francois hadn't considered. Suddenly the tribesman pointed to the ground near the water's edge, his voice urgent. Francois followed the direction of his gesture and saw what he had missed in the chaos, a set of large, deep tracks leading away from the pool, disappearing into the thicker bush beyond. These were not elephant tracks, nor were they from any animal Francois had expected to see. They were unmistakably human. The realization hit Francois like a cold wave. Someone had been here, possibly observing the elephants and waiting for the right moment to strike. The crocodile attack might not have been a mere coincidence. But who would be out here in the middle of nowhere with the intent of targeting elephants? Poachers. The word sent a shiver down Francois's spine. In this part of the world, elephants were often hunted for their tusks, and poachers were known to use any means necessary to take down their prey. The tribesman's warning suddenly made sense. He was telling Francois to leave to get out of the area before the poachers realized they had an unintentional witness. Francois's instinct was to flee, but another part of him, a deeper, more determined part, refused to leave the elephants behind. He had just seen how vulnerable they were, especially the young calf. If poachers were nearby, the herd was in grave danger. As Francois wrestled with his decision, the tribesman turned abruptly and started moving towards the deeper bush, motioning for Francois to follow. The photographer hesitated, but something in the man's urgency compelled him to obey. They moved quickly and silently, the tribesman leading him to a hidden vantage point where they could observe the pool without being seen. From this new position, Francois saw them, two figures lurking in the shadows, barely visible but unmistakably armed. The poachers were here, waiting for the elephants to let their guard down. Francois's heart pounded in his chest. He realized that he was now caught in a dangerous game, one where the stakes were life and death. He had to act, but how? He wasn't a hero, just a photographer with a camera and a desire to capture the beauty of the wild. But now he was faced with a choice: stay hidden and hope the herd would escape, or find a way to warn the elephants without revealing his position. As Francois weighed his options, the tribesman suddenly handed him something, a small, crude whistle made from bone. The man pointed to the whistle, then to the elephants, signaling that it could be used to alert the herd. But there was a risk the sound might also attract the poachers. Francois was torn, but he knew he couldn't do nothing. With trembling hands, he lifted the whistle to his lips and blew. The sound was sharp, piercing the still air. The reaction was immediate. The elephants froze, their ears flapping as they listened. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Then the herd began to move quickly and decisively away from the pool and towards the safety of the denser forest. The poachers, realizing they had been thwarted, cursed loudly and retreated into the bush, their opportunity lost. The herd of elephants continued their retreat into the denser parts of the bush, their pace quickened by the sound of Francois Borman's whistle. The baby elephant, still recovering from the crocodile's attack, stuck close to its mother, its small body shivering as it tried to keep up. The thick vegetation provided a sense of safety, but Francois knew that the danger was far from over. The poachers had been thwarted for now, but they were still out there, lurking and likely more desperate than ever. The tribesman, who had been an unexpected ally in this tense situation, moved cautiously through the bush, keeping a safe distance from the herd but maintaining a clear line of sight. Francois could see the frustration on the poachers' faces as they regrouped. They were speaking in hushed tones, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of interference. Francois knew that if they realized he and the tribesmen had disrupted their plans, the situation could escalate quickly. As he and the tribesmen crept through the bush, Francois couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced around nervously, but the dense foliage obscured his view. Suddenly a low growl cut through the air, causing Francois to freeze in his tracks. The tribesman stiffened, his eyes widening as he pointed to a shadowy figure moving through the underbrush. A lion, sleek and powerful, its golden eyes locked onto Francois. The lion was not alone. 2 more lions flanked it, their predatory gaze fixed on the intruders in their territory. Francois's heart pounded in his chest. He had faced many dangers in the wild, but being caught between a pride of lions and a group of armed poachers was not something he had ever anticipated. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of charging towards Francois and the tribesmen, the lions began to stalk in the direction of the poachers. It was as if they had sensed a greater threat, their instincts guiding them toward the men who posed a danger not just to the elephants but to the balance of life in this part of the bush. Francois exchanged a shocked glance with the tribesman, who nodded as if to say, "Let nature take its course." The lions' approach had not gone unnoticed by the poachers. The men recognized the danger they were in and began to retreat, but not without taking aim at the advancing predators. The crack of a rifle shot echoed through the air, sending birds flying from the trees and causing the herd of elephants to panic. The baby elephant let out a terrified trumpet as it tried to keep up with the fleeing herd. Francois's breath caught in his throat as he watched the scene unfold. The lions, undeterred by the gunfire, pressed on, their movements becoming more aggressive as they closed in on the poachers. The men, realizing that they were outmatched, abandoned their pursuit of the elephants and ran in the opposite direction, firing shots wildly in an attempt to scare off the lions. But the lions were relentless, driven by a combination of territorial instinct and, perhaps, Francois dared to think, a sense of protecting their domain from those who sought to disrupt it. One of the poachers stumbled, his rifle slipping from his grasp as he fell to the ground. The lions pounced, but before they could reach him, the tribesman suddenly stepped forward, raising his spear in a commanding gesture. Francois watched in stunned silence as the tribesman, who had been so quiet and unassuming until now, took control of the situation. He shouted something in his native tongue, a word that seemed to carry the weight of authority. The lions, astonishingly, paused in their attack, their muscles tensed as they stared at the tribesman. The fallen poacher, seeing his opportunity, scrambled to his feet and ran after his companions, leaving his rifle behind in his haste. The lions, perhaps sensing that the immediate threat had passed, slowly backed away, their eyes never leaving the tribesman, until they melted back into the shadows of the bush. Francois was in awe. The tribesman had not only saved the poacher's life, but he also managed to diffuse a situation that could have ended in bloodshed. The poachers were gone, and the lions had returned to their natural order, leaving the bush to reclaim its peace. With the danger now seemingly past, Francois and the tribesmen turned their attention back to the herd. The elephants had gathered at a safe distance, their movements calmer as they regrouped. The baby elephant, still shaken but unharmed, nestled close to its mother, who wrapped her trunk protectively around her calf. As Francois and the tribesmen began to make their way back, the weight of the day's events settled over them. They had witnessed not just the violence and danger of the wild, but also the mercy and balance that it could bring. Francois knew that he would never forget this day, a day when a miracle happened, not just in the survival of the baby elephant, but in the way nature had averted disaster through the most unexpected of alliances. This experience had shown him that in the wild there were no clear lines between predator and prey, between danger and safety. It was a place of endless surprises, where even the most carefully laid plans could be overturned by the whims of fate or the instincts of a pride of lions. Thanks for joining us for this emotional journey. What kind of connections do you think there were between the tribesmen and the lions? Would you have blown the whistle in Francois' place? We're eager to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more jaw-dropping moments.